I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Bob Mackin, award-winning investigative reporter and publisher of TheBreaker.News, his website, TheBreaker.ca. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Bob, one of the world's best firefighting aircraft, one of the few that can fight fire at night, is sitting on a lake in Vancouver Island and not fighting fire. We're talking about the Martin Mars, until the 747, the largest flying aircraft in the world. Why do the governments across North America not use this beast to fight forest fires?
Well, they come up with a lot of excuses, but at a time like this, wherever there's fires, and there's fires in BC, there's fires in Ontario, there's fires in Washington State, fires all over the place, endangering ecosystems, endangering human life, and I can't understand why you wouldn't want to get whatever tools out there necessary from whatever companies necessary. This is a time, this is war. It's war on flames. And serious questions have got to be asked about this, and maybe the only way to get answers is through the courts. So those people who are affected by forest firefighting, the lack of effectiveness in forest firefighting, the people that lose their possessions, their homes, their ranches, the forests, maybe it's time for them to get together a class action lawsuit and to fight governments, get them into courts and ask them under oath in front of a judge why this isn't happening. I think that might be the only way we get answers, because they dipsy doodle and dance around the questions, the politicians and the bureaucrats. Maybe that's the only way, is to get them under oath in front of a judge to answer why they're not throwing every single piece of dedicated equipment at these fires to mitigate, if not prevent, the further damage.
Wayne Colson, the president of Colson Flying Tankers, the owners of the Martin Mars, told me he offered to demonstrate a free firefighting effort at night to show the government what his airplane can do, and they turned him down. For free.
Well, they can talk all they want about the age of that equipment, and maybe it's not as fuel efficient as new equipment. But when you've got the ability to suck up that much water and dump that much water at the same time, it boggles the mind.
Well, it has what they call a glass cockpit, and that's why it can fly at night. It's virtual reality. So to them, it doesn't matter if there's smoke, fog, or other, weather conditions obscuring their vision. They don't need it. There's nothing else in the world that can do that. Mm-hmm. So when they say it's an old airplane, it's got the most modern guts.
Yeah, I think that might be the only way. We're in a situation where summers seem to be hotter and drier in certain parts of North America, and if it's not being used this year, the question's got to be why it won't be used next year. And again, I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Why landowners haven't got together in a class action and put governments on the spot. This is a big problem. The RCMP is investigating the interior of BC after receiving evidence that a number of wildfires in recent years have been human-caused arsons, and they got to get to the bottom of that. Who is lighting them, and are people lighting them for profit, for instance, or lighting them because they've got serious problems in their life and they think that this is going to cause them some sort of joy? I don't know, but this is a huge hole in the budgets, and the government always underprepares from a budgetary standpoint and always overspends. Well, could use of whatever equipment is available in strategic fashion to try to minimize the damage, if not prevent damage, could it end up helping the bottom line at the end of the day, and you got to think that they'd be wise to explore every single avenue they have.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, real estate information is going to become more expensive to access. What's happened and why?
Well, there's an agency called the Land, Title, and Survey Authority. They were privatized essentially from government in 2005. The Gordon Campbell BC Liberals announced this move in 2004 to spin it off into its own independent, not-for-profit agency, working on a long-term operation agreement with the government to manage the systems with regard to land titles and survey, to know the clearinghouse for land use in British Columbia, who owns the land, where the land is, how much it's worth, of course, input from various other agencies, but this is the database of all the land in British Columbia, and it has charged a fee for anyone to look at the title to find out who owns the land and when the land changed hands, whether it changed hands between people or corporations. And they recently, in the early part of July, announced they're going to do some enhancements. Yeah, they call it enhancements to the system. They even use that word, enhancements. But in that news release on the ltsa.ca website, they actually explained that they were going to take away the free preview of ownership information. They had published for a couple of decades or so the first owner name on title. And often the first owner name on title was the only name on title. And that was included in the top line information that they did allow us to see. They allowed that there because they didn't want people to complain that they were buying a product from the database blindly, so they wanted to have at least a little bit of information out there so that people could decide that they wanted to buy that, and they weren't going to make a mistake if they were looking it up from the owner name basis instead of just the land property identification number or the actual street address. So they decided early July that no, they were going to take away that function, the first owner name and title, and replace that with an abbreviation. So the first two letters of a person's last name and their first initial. And if it's a company that owns the property, it's the first two letters of the company name. And so that's all you see. If you go to the property registry, the base price is $9.45 plus tax, plus a transaction fee if you're doing it online. There's no transaction fee if you go to the office during business hours, such as the one in New Westminster for Metro Vancouver. So, long and the short of it is, if you're someone like me, a journalist who is often looking in this day and age when housing and real estate are the overarching stories here in British Columbia, who's buying and who's owning and where's the money coming from? Well, if you want the name, you got to pay for the name. Unless you can make do, I don't know, anyone can make do with the first two initials, first two letters of a person's last name, it's really useless. So, as much as this appears to be just a cash grab, Craig Johnston, who's the Director of Titles at Land Title Survey Authority of BC, said that he's the one who's in charge with interpreting the law, the Land Titles Act, and within that he found that, for people who want this information, they're supposed to pay for the information. So no more free lunch from the Land Title Survey Authority, which is really frustrating because in other jurisdictions in North America, I mean, just down the road in Washington State, Whatcom County, where Bellingham is, you can go to a free website there, and you can find out the name of an owner of a property. Maricopa County, Arizona, a county where a lot of Canadians have property for investments and vacation purposes. You can find out who owns what down there. But in British Columbia, you've got to pay to get over the paywall, and there's no free preview information anymore of the first owner, name, and title. There is one small solace I can still, as a journalist, anyone in the public can, in fact, go to the BC Assessment Authority office. There's one in Vancouver, in East Vancouver. You can go there during business hours and sit in front of their computer and pump in some addresses and get the owner names out of there. But otherwise, if you want to do it on your own computer, you've got to pay. And that's one search. One search will cost more than $10. That starts to add up. And when governments either directly put money, put fees in front of the public to get information, or they allow their private partners to do that, that restricts the amount of information. That restricts the transparency and accountability that we expect in this day and age. This also happens when the BC NDP government is exploring the introduction of a beneficial ownership registry. They've got a white paper right now. They're accepting public comment until August 19th. That will be a registry that the government's going to collect information on really who owns what. Because at this point in time, the government doesn't actually ask for identification when someone buys the property like they do when you take out a library card, for instance. Governments want more information from library card applicants than they do from people who register companies or transfer land. So, yeah, here we are with the NDP government saying, on one hand, they're going to be giving us more accountability and transparency of who really owns what, but on the other hand, this organization, which is accountable to government and has two people from two cabinet appointees that are on the board of directors, but there they are quietly taking away the ability for us to freely see at least part of title information at a crucial time when, again, the questions are who owns what and where's the money coming from for this overpriced real estate here in British Columbia.
Any thoughts of going to the information commissioner?
That's possible from a principal standpoint. However, I can already anticipate the answer might be from them that this is something that is not governed by the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act as much as the lowercase Freedom of Information standards should apply, that the governments should be letting us see this type of information, and especially other governments let their citizens see. But because the FOI law doesn't apply to this type of information, I don't expect that the Office of the Information Privacy Commissioner will take up this case, which I find very unfortunate.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Mackin. Bob, has TransLink finally told us how much they think the Langley-Surrey rapid transit line or light rail line is going to cost?
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a lot more than they told us when they asked us to vote on it back in 2015. They haven't updated the numbers publicly until just recently. In fact, on April 30th, when they told us the inflated new price tags for the Broadway subway, which is about $2.98 billion now, and for the Surrey-Newton-Guildford line, which is now about $1.65 billion, both of those well over $600 million more than originally anticipated. They didn't want to answer the question that I had for them, which is, well, what about that other part of the Surrey LRT? The part along the Fraser Highway that goes from Surrey to Langley. They did whatever they could. CEO Kevin Desmond and Vice President Sandy Zine, Vice President of Engineering, did whatever they could, used whatever weasel words they could to try to get themselves out of that sticky situation. But through Freedom of Information, I was able to find that, in fact, there was a report dated from July of 2017. So it was on their table. They knew all about it. If they didn't, they must have been sleeping through meetings. But I was able to find out through this report by Anthony Stedman, who has been the cost estimation consultant on numerous infrastructure projects, numerous transit infrastructure projects, including SkyTrain projects from the past. Well, he estimated that for the light rail option, which was the promised option, it would be about $1.9 billion. That's to compare with the plebiscite era figure from just 3 short years ago of about $1.22 billion. And if they wanted to go SkyTrain, that it would cost about 2.9, almost $3 billion. So to go the faster option to build the concrete guideway elevated above the Fraser Highway, it would cost a heck of a lot more than it would cost for light rail. And this debate is going to be raging during the civic election out in Surrey. You already have Doug McCallum, the former mayor, who's trying to make a comeback for another time. He didn't succeed in his comeback in 2014, but he's trying to come back now in 2018, and part of his platform is no LRT, cancel the LRT, and go all SkyTrain in Surrey, expand the SkyTrain, and now you've got some numbers to tell you how much extra that would cost. Of course, there's a bit of a debate about whether it should be SkyTrain to help people get to Surrey, get to Langley faster, connect to the existing system, or to go the first phase of LRT, which would be better from a city building standpoint, because Surrey is number 2 in provincial population, only to City of Vancouver, and there's projections that Surrey will eventually overtake Vancouver. And LRT would aid better in building a city. Streetcars, trams are better for smaller cities and to help build cities. But there's a school of thought out there that says that because of urban sprawl, people who cannot afford to live anymore in Vancouver are having to look further afield, and they may be moving out of Vancouver, but they still want to get to their jobs. They still want to get downtown in order to do shopping or to go to sports or entertainment events or just to enjoy places like Stanley Park. Well, LRT won't exactly help them to do that. LRT will help people stay in Surrey and perhaps travel to Surrey and travel around Surrey. But Langley, for the next phase of whatever it is, LRT or SkyTrain, that would happen in about 2022. So now we've got the numbers. TransLink is finally fessed up. It wasn't such a hard thing for them to do, but I think they were so scared of similar outcomes to 2015 that the public would get price sticker shock that they decided to hold on to them for so long. And now we know what the costs are. This project isn't funded yet. The second phase of Surrey, this will require more money from other governments, which means more money from every Joe and Jane Q public out there who's already paying more for transit fares, paying more for gas taxes, paying more for property taxes, paying more for parking taxes. And there's also going to be taxes added to the cost of building condos and houses. So it's all about more for TransLink, who really aren't the kind of agency that really wants to have the public know exactly what's happening, except on its own terms, which is unfortunate because TransLink exists because of us.
When are we going to see Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson's secret emails?
That's still the $64,000 question. It could be worth more than that, depending on what's in the emails. Who really knows what kind of secrets he gave away in those emails, and if those secrets might be costing taxpayers or might cost the mayor himself. You never know. But it's looking like it's going to be end of August, at least, maybe even September. This is going to be a waiting game, unfortunately. I'm relying on the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner to do something about this. This is very unsettling when a politician, years after the Information and Privacy Commissioner said, don't do this, And if you do this, then be ready for an FOI request and be ready to hand them over to anyone who wants to see them. If you're doing personal government business on your personal email system, the Information Privacy Commissioner's directive says that that email, that correspondence, is a public record, and the public has a right to see it. And you must go search for it and must disclose it. In this case, I was able to find by happenstance that the mayor has a Gmail address, and the G doesn't stand for Gregor. It stands for Google Mail, and that he was using that to conduct various types of government business. I asked to see all of his email for a certain period of time over a many months period, and they told me that there were at least 5,000 pages, and they originally wanted more time. They told the Information Privacy Commissioner back in January they wanted more than 200 business days to find it, and that 200 business days would have taken them beyond the election. The Information Privacy Commissioner gave them until middle of June, but then the mayor's office started playing fast and loose and said hum and ha, and we need to do some consultations, third-party consultations, including consultations with other governments before we decide to let this out of our grasp. So the question is, who are those other governments, and what is in that email, and why is the mayor using a Google email address instead of his City of Vancouver address, which he's been in office since 2008. There's no excuse for this, except that he is breaking a promise. He came to power in 2008 promising he would return openness and accountability to City Hall in Vancouver. He even used the words, "I will not let you down." Those are the words he used, "I will not let you down." And despite getting reelected a couple of times, he did let citizens down. He let us in the media down. He's built up a wall of secrecy while he's let us down. And here we are waiting to find out what's in these thousands of pages of email. Was he playing the same game that Hillary Clinton was playing to keep information away from prying public eyes, from political opponents, from media, from the public that pays the bills? It's a mystery, and often it's the cover-up that's bigger than the problem itself. But in this case, you got to wonder, what are they covering up? It'd be pretty damn easy to just unleash this. After all, he's a lame duck mayor. He's not running for office again. How would this hurt him?
Do we have to start chanting "lock him up"?
Well, that's a good question there. We're living in a day and age when municipal governments have very little checks and balances, fewer checks and balances than senior governments. City of Vancouver, the Vancouver City Hall, there is no independent authority that oversees Vancouver City Hall from, the administration of elections. The elections are basically handled by the city clerk, who wears a different hat of chief electoral officer. So the city clerk runs the elections, not Elections BC, even though Elections BC does take an interest in campaign financing. There's no ethics commissioner. There's no ombudsperson at City Hall. In Toronto, there is. There's a lobbying commissioner. There's basically an ombudsperson, an auditor general at City Hall. There are offices in Victoria that take notice of what goes on at City Halls. The Information Privacy Commissioner's office, the ombudsperson, auditor general for local government. But, they're overstressed and under-resourced. They don't have the time to spend looking over City of Vancouver and looking over Surrey as well, like they should.
Well, didn't Robertson just hire another 400 personnel making over $100,000 a year? Couldn't one or two of those be an ethics commissioner or an auditor general?
Oh, they would, of course. But, Gregor Robertson is more interested in painting the town green and pretending to be this world savior than someone to fulfill a promise to run a government that is ethical and accountable to the people that pay for it. He's there for the donors that put him there, and for the causes that he believes in. The cause that he came to power with back in 2008 to house the street homeless and to make City Hall work again, make it accountable to the people, and make it an affordable city. Those were just promises that got him into power and get him a following. I don't think he really cares about leaving a legacy of a government that we can be proud of, and a government that works for all people of all persuasions, of all people, of all political stripes, or people that most people don't even have a political stripe. They just want good services delivered properly. They don't want waste. They don't want high taxes. They don't want corruption. They want a government that responds to their needs. And after he leaves office in October, and even before then, I think we'll be asking what kind of legacy will he have left. And the legacy that he's leaving is a legacy of higher taxes and less openness, higher secrecy. And we're in a city where the questions that are being asked about the effects of casino money laundering, for instance, and the effects of money laundering in the real estate market, pumping up the prices in the real estate market, and questions about the city which we've seen time and again has not been as safe as it should be. There's an unsolved murder from back in January. A 15-year-old boy who was with his parents visiting from Coquitlam on a Saturday night on West Broadway, just in a car and hit by a stray bullet and killed. And I think for a mayor who has been the head of the police board, and the police are not succeeding in solving all major crimes, and not finding a way to work better with other police agencies, I think that without the law and order, and without a city that we can say is truly safe, and with a mayor who's been more concerned about his worldwide profile, about going to conferences in other big cities, and not about what really goes on between Point Grey and Boundary Road and the Fraser River and Burrard Inlet, that's his jurisdiction. And the questions will be asked as we get closer to October 20th. We're 12 weeks, almost 11 weeks until Election Day. 12 weeks, almost 11 weeks to the end of the Gregor Robertson era. And I think it's going to be an era that when we talk about out of control development, high real estate prices, and image politics, we're not going to be talking about an era where Vancouver actually became a better city, a safer city, a friendlier city.
Bob, you've done a story about Canada's vice president on FIFA. Apparently he's rolling in the dough like an uninjured soccer player rolls around. Can you tell us that story?
True. Victor Montagliani's done well in the soccer business. He rose the ranks from the British Columbia Soccer Association into the presidency of the Canadian Soccer Association, and found an opening to get onto the executive of CONCACAF, the North and Central American and Caribbean zone of FIFA, one of the subsidiaries of FIFA, regional subsidiaries. He became the president in 2016, the year after the big corruption bomb blew up, essentially. $150 million of bribery and kickbacks in FIFA that we know of, that the FBI has been able to find. Well, Victor Montagliani has done well for himself climbing the ladder. And the New York Times did a story back in April about how Victor Montagliani was paid $2 million US last year. And that was to be the head of CONCACAF. So that made him an even higher paid executive in the soccer world than Gianni Infantino. Infantino is the president who succeeded the corrupt Sepp Blatter. Now FIFA deals in billions of dollars. They have about $5-6 billion revenue over each 4-year cycle. CONCACAF, we don't really know exactly how much it makes, but in a good year, when they have their Gold Cup tournament, they make about $100 million. So the amount of revenue that CONCACAF makes isn't exactly enough to truly support such a high-paying job to Montagliani, especially in a zone like North and Central America, where Mexico is really the only major soccer power in the entire region. Soccer is not a top sport for TV and sponsorship in Canada or the U.S., where, of course, hockey is king in Canada, and down in the U.S., National Football League and National Basketball Association are real leaders. So he made $2 million US last year, and I found out by doing a search to find out where he lives. I found out that last year he moved from one West Vancouver house to another. He was living near Sentinel Hill in a house that was worth about $3.5 million, and moved in mid 2017 to buy a house near West Bay for well over $6 million, about $6.6 million. Moved from one house that was pretty average for Sentinel Hill to one that it can be described as a mansion behind a gated fence with a pool and a hot tub and views of Stanley Park and the city skyline. The kind of house that befits someone from FIFA. But of course, when you say something befits someone for FIFA, that's not saying the best thing you can about an association, which really is in charge of the world's biggest sport, but their raison d'etre essentially is putting on soccer tournaments. So you got someone that is the top soccer executive for Canada, US, and Mexico, which will be hosting the 2026 World Cup. He's paid more in a year than the President of the United States, the President of Mexico, and the Prime Minister of Canada combined. Yet the revenue that comes into CONCACAF is rather underwhelming in the grand scheme of things. This is a job that brings with it a lot of perks. They get pampered a lot at the World Cup tournaments. They get private drivers, tickets to games they want to see, first class air travel, and to be in the best hotels available. And they're also able to afford themselves mansions and high salaries. And where this gets interesting is, though, that Martelliani has been vocal about the BC NDP government deciding to play hardball with FIFA over the 2026 World Cup, which eventually was awarded to Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. Talks broke down in March between the BC NDP government and the bid committee out of New York for the 2026 bid. The BC government had some serious questions. They wanted to negotiate further. They wanted clarification on some key points about the contract, about who really benefits from the contract, about inflation over the next 8 years, about costs of security, costs of where to put the fan zone and the broadcast compound. The two sides were kind of far apart, and from what I've been able to deduce through digging through FOI documents so far, from what the BC government has shown me, and I'm not anywhere near the end of my research, is that the BC government was doing its best to represent taxpayers and ask questions about what FIFA wanted, and FIFA was through the CONCACAF executives and through the United Bid Committee out of New York, not responding in kind to offer the clarification or open up further negotiation. They had their deadline, and they wanted Vancouver in the bid book. And Vancouver didn't end up being in the bid book because they set a deadline, and the BC government didn't come back to the table and didn't say yes to the terms that they were asking questions about. So here we've got someone like Vic Martelliani who says that this was all for the benefit of British Columbia, and he's disappointed that there won't be any World Cup games in British Columbia in 2026. And a lot of people in the soccer community are disappointed too. But you've also got to realize this is only 3 short years since the FIFA corruption scandal, and understand the U.S. Department of Justice isn't finished its investigation. There may be more to come. And people in British Columbia, hardworking people, definitely have the right to ask where money would go if FIFA was coming in 2026. An organization that gets tax breaks wherever it goes and gets taxpayers to pick up the costs of various other items while it wines and dines its sponsors for its benefit, and then ends up going back to Switzerland to enjoy its profits. There have been some public opinion surveys that have shown that the public is supportive of the NDP position. It's unfortunate. I'm sure we all would have loved to have enjoyed World Cup soccer in 2026, but we're in a day and age when mega events are under increasing scrutiny because of the misbehavior of organizers of past. And I don't think FIFA and CONCACAF have quite yet shown that they really are the new organizations that they say they are. And when things like this happen, when you've got executives who are spending a lot of money, making a lot of money, and spending a lot of money in an overheated real estate market like this, that money could all be, and probably is very much on the up and up. Nothing wrong with that money that he spent, but there's the optics of people involved in this kind of sport business who are spending it in that fashion. Meanwhile, they want the public to pay for their events. There's a bit of a disconnect there, especially when FIFA has about $1 billion in the bank and, theoretically could afford to put more on the table and lessen the blow of governments. Bob,
thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin. He's also the publisher of thebreaker.news, his website, thebreaker.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.